1, 2, 3.
Up in the hills of Northern California, we believe America is the home of the brave. What we got is earned by...
Good morning. My name is Carpenter. My partner Terry Rapoza is off today. He's a little bit under the weather, so we're going to be flying solo here, if you will. Just wanted to get some information out to everybody, let everybody know what we're doing still, continuing the fight, if you will, and education, and just getting the word out, letting people know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it, and what we're up against. If you have any interest and you'd like to call in, you can call into area code 530-255-8063. Again, 255-8063. What we're looking at is all the issues that we've got going on here, specifically to California. We're under tyrannical rule, mandates, everything else, as you well know. Much like the federal mandates that don't mean anything, they don't carry water, they're not law. And that's the thing too, people have to really understand is that it's not law. The governor cannot create law, and neither can the president. It's a legislative body that does that. That's their job. Their one and only purpose is to do that. And so, well, maybe not one and only purpose, but that is their big part of their job is the law, to make sure that they're protecting our God-given rights through the Constitution. And they're supposed to protect that. They're not doing it. And that is the frustrating part for all of us that know that. And we have been watching that happen for years, and it's disintegrating before our eyes. Now, what are we leaving for our kids, grandkids, and other family and friends? What are we leaving for them if we don't fight? We have a lot of good patriots, specifically in our county here, in Shasta County. We have a lot of good patriots that are fighting for multiple reasons. Maybe it's the healthcare issues. Maybe it's the law thing that's going on. Maybe it's the, the corrupt bureaucrats, politicians, and management of any government agency that's out there. Those are the things that we're fighting for. We're trying to get those things corrected and cleaned up. Unfortunately, it's a process. Unfortunately, it's a long process. So sometimes you have to wrestle in the mud with the pigs before you can get it done. But don't forget that the pigs love wrestling in the mud. That's the part that's the frustrating part. We've got to get out there and we've got to fight the fight, keep things going, and make sure that we're not dropping the ball on behalf of everybody that we're fighting for. The big thing I'd like to talk about too is Jefferson is the current movement that started in 2013 by Mark Baird and some patriots that were willing to step up to the plate and to do the right thing up in Siskiyou County. Siskiyou County is north of our county here in Northern California, true Northern California. Siskiyou County is the last county on I-5 before you hit the Oregon border. It borders the Oregon border. So it truly is Northern California. And we want to make sure that what they did and how they did it isn't all for nothing. And everything else that everybody else has been doing is not for nothing. We've been fighting the fight, like I said, since 2013. We've learned a lot. We've had to learn a lot because none of us are educated in the law. None of us are formally educated, put it that way. We're learning the school of hard knocks. None of us are formally educated on how the process works with splitting a state because that hasn't happened for over 150 years. So you're looking at things that we're trying to do now that have happened in the past. And when we do become our 51st state and we split away from California, that will be the 5th state split to occur in our nation's history. That's right. There have been 4 others that have been successful. They had different reasons for them, and most of it was around the war, World War I. No. It was around the first war that we had in our nation, and we're looking to do that. We're coming up on that. It's the big thing that people are always curious about. Well, when did it happen? Well, it happened back when we split away from England. We created our own states, and then the states started fighting amongst themselves. So we had to get things going and get it done properly. And it took time. It took lots of time. And unfortunately, it cost lives. And anything worth fighting for, there will be sacrifice. And that's the part that a lot of people are afraid to do. They're afraid to sacrifice. Well, we're already being sacrificed by the bureaucrats and the politicians that are in the game for their own purpose. They're there to grease their palms, get their money, and create their own wealth off the backs of the public, the tax-paying public, the voting public. And so we have to make sure that we're dealing with those the best way we can. We have to be lawful, and we have to be legal about how we do it. And there's a process within the Constitution on how to do these things, and we have to follow that, or we're no better than they are. So we need to make sure that we're stopping or halting the politicians who are in there for their own purposes. They're in there to corrupt, and you can see what they're doing or not doing. If they're not doing something, they're lying by omission, or if they're sitting there telling you one thing and doing another, they're lying straight to your face. And we have a lot of that. We have that here in our county. That's why we decided, we meaning a bunch of people and several groups that came together, decided to do a recall. We have a recall started out for 3 politicians here locally. There are 68 recalls in the state of California currently going. Shasta County has 3. That's right, Shasta County has 3 recalls going on. And so when we started doing this process, once again, we had our fire season, which is all smoke. And then the heat of the summer just about wiped us all out, trying to get out there to collect signatures, to meet with people, to talk to people. People aren't willing to open up their doors when it's so smoky and so darn hot. We live in a Mediterranean climate, and it's tough in the summer here in Redding. Triple digits, often for days at a time. And so it's hard to be out on the pavement, walking and going door to door, talking to people and educating them, and just letting them know what's going on and trying to collect signatures. And we had to do it in districts specific to those who we were recalling. We recalled one board supervisor, and that was in District 2, Leonard Modi, and that has been successful. The signatures have been validated by the Registrar of Voters Office, and everything's a go for that. There's a process that's going to take place, and my understanding is the election will take place in February, so around February 8, I believe, of 2022. So it's a couple months away, so we still have time to do things that we need to do for that. The other 2 that we were looking to recall at the same time, we haven't been successful with that, but that doesn't mean it's over with. We can always fire those back up if we choose to do that. And it depends on the workload that everybody's been putting into it. We've been doing this, working on this kind of stuff for this last go-around for well over a year when COVID started, when our Board of Supervisors decided not to allow the public come to the board meetings. They were having the board meetings, forcing the public to be outside, standing outside in the smoke, because again, we have our fire season here, and it's very smoky, and it's hot, and they're inside with masks on behind plexiglass in the chambers, in the board chambers. And so they're inside, and they would allow one person at a time to come into the lobby of the board chambers and speak to a microphone, which is probably a good 60, maybe even 70 feet away from the board members. And so they would allow one person at a time to come in and do the public speaking. And for that, I think it was wrong. It was really wrong on every level. They didn't listen to what was going on. They didn't hear what we were having to say. They were basically just ignoring everything that people were saying and why they were saying it. They never asked why we felt a certain way. They never asked why we thought a certain way. Why do we think this is happening? Why do we feel this way? And what can they do to fix it? What can they do to help? They've never asked that. Or if they did, I don't recall it. And that's the part that's frustrating, is because they're voted in by the public, the taxpayers of the specific districts that they each serve. And when they're voted into office, they are now the employees of those taxpayers for that district, for the registered voters in that district. But then they're also the employees of the entire county. So just because they serve in one district, they serve at the purpose for the entire county as a board. So the decisions they make, the votes they make, and the actions they take affect the entire county. So just because a certain board member lives in a different district and is elected into that district to serve it, doesn't mean that they don't affect somebody else in another district. So I live in District 3, and there's a district board member that, say, lives in District 4, and they like or dislike some of the things that are going on, and they're voting counter to what I believe, then I have the right to go talk to them about that. But they don't see that. They want to dictate and run everything as as a monarchy, if you will. And they do that. They do that quite well, or at least they did until we started pointing it out and we challenged them. And we were not going to take any more no's for answers anymore. We needed to get responses from them, and their lack of action and their lack of truth has really paved the way for the recall. And so when they're lying to the public about things that they've done or haven't done, and we know for a fact that they are lying, then we hold them accountable to that. And don't forget, a lot of our people that are working in the movement are very bright people. They're top shelf. And they're going to go in and they're going to ask a question that they already have the answer to. They know the answer because they've done their homework. And they've done their homework because they want to make sure they're doing everything as right as possible. And so when they go into those meetings and they ask the specific questions about whatever the issue may be, and the board member out and out lies to them and to the rest of the public that's there and the public that's online that can view it and hear it. And don't forget, all these meetings are recorded, so you can go back and view them. But when they lie to them, that sets a tone for us we the people, to keep on fighting, because we know when they're going to lie to us to our face, what are they doing behind the scenes that we don't see? What are they orchestrating that we don't see or never have seen or don't understand and don't know what's going on? Those are the things that really scare you, and they should scare you, because if they're going to orchestrate things and some actions that are outside the purview of their job and they are affecting that, we need to make sure that they're getting taken care of, that there's a corrective action that goes with that. And a corrective action, in my mind, is a recall for a board member. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of that. And I'm not talking just about, say, specifically just the Board of Supervisors. We're talking about any elected official. It doesn't matter who they are. City council, registrar of voters, assessor, DA, sheriff. You just go down the list. The judges. There are 15 elected officials in Shasta County. So you go through that list, and it's easy to find. Just go on to shastacounty.ca.gov, and you can find all those things on there. You can find the list of who they are, and you can find out who gets elected through the constitutional part of being elected versus being a bureaucrat who's appointed. And those are the kind of things that you need to know and understand. So you go through that process, you look at that information, and wrap your head around it so you know who you're going to be voting for or not. And it depends, if you live in a certain district, maybe you only get to vote for one board member, but then how does the sheriff affect your vote? Well, I don't know. Are they doing a good job? Are they not doing a good job? And are they doing a good job to your liking or to somebody else's liking? Those are the kind of things you have to ask yourself. Same with the DA, assessor, tax collector, all of them. You have to go through the process, and you have to understand that. And don't think just because there's one person running for an election for a spot on the ballot, you don't have to vote for them. And don't do that. If you don't feel that you need to vote for them, and if there's only one person on that part of the ballot running for that specific office, you do not have to vote for them. I do that all the time. If I see somebody on there that I know that I don't want to elect, and I don't want them to get my vote, I'm not going to vote for them. It doesn't make my ballot invalid. It just means that I didn't vote for that specific person, but the rest of the ballot is valid with whoever else I voted for or whatever else I voted for, if there are issues on there, whatever. So those are the kind of things you have to really look at, do your homework, and find out. Research these folks. Find out what they've been doing. Look at their voting record. Look at their performance record. And, judges aren't immune to this. What are they doing? Are they releasing criminals before they're supposed to be released? Are they being soft on crime? Who knows? Are they corrupt? I don't know. Those are things you have to ask yourself. And you talk to people about that. Do some homework, do some research. Because every time you turn around, there's something else coming down the pike. And who pays for it? We do. The taxpayers pay for everything. And we need to make sure that we're being very careful about what we're doing and holding them accountable. The biggest problem I have is that for our county specifically, they don't seem to understand what the budget's about. They don't seem to have a handle on the budget. My understanding from talking to former board members is that years ago, they would go through line item by line item before they approved the budget. And that's the right thing to do. You go through and say, okay, are we going to keep this or are we going to toss it or kick it out of the budget? And then you address it accordingly. And then if you're going to keep it, then are you going to downsize it? Are you going to blow it up, meaning add more money to it or take money away from it and put that money elsewhere, or just take money off the table, period, for that? Those are the kind of things you have to look at, and those are questions that need to be asked, and they need to be answered. And they need to be held account to that, because we can't sustain the bloated budget that we have here in Shasta County. My understanding, it's well over $600 million now. And last year, they discovered they had $60 million sitting there in some account that nobody knew about. Well, somebody knew about it. A couple somebodies knew about it. And why was it there? They wouldn't be honest about it. They won't answer questions on that. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. If you're going to hire somebody to do a job, you want them to do a job, you want them to be thorough, you want them to do a good job, and if there's an issue, talk about it. They never seem to want to talk about any of the issues that come up. They're always just they just make a vote, that's it. And then they don't ever respond to why they're voting a certain way. They don't share additional information that could be pertinent and also mind-changing for the taxpayers. Those are the kind of things that we have to really look at. We have to understand where they're going with it, what they're doing, and how they're doing it. And their track record, that says a lot. If they're saying they're conservative and they're voting in a counter-conservative way, then there's some issues with that. If they're not being conservative, and I don't mean in every aspect of being a conservative, I mean conservatively voting on the issues, being careful because it's not their money. It's not their bank account to deal with. It's the people's money. It's the people's bank account. They're just being stewards of that money, and they're supposed to be taking care of it and watching over it like a bulldog. That's their job. And if they need to trim some fat through trimming departments, through trimming staff, management, trimming items, not making purchases, or selling properties that maybe they own that they're not doing anything with and have no purpose for in a long-term goal, those are the kind of things that need to be dealt with. They need to do those things and do them on a regular basis and make sure that they're staying on top of it and sharing that information with the public, saying we're going to be doing this and this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and this is why we're going to do it. Give the explanation. Even if people don't like what it is, if they get an explanation as to what's happening and why, they're more apt to be supportive of it. They may not like it, but at least they'll support your decision in doing it. And that's the way you want to do it. You don't want to keep telling people that they don't know what they're talking about, or ignoring them and just making a vote or casting your vote and then not answering to it. It looks shady, and a lot of times it is. And that's the part that's so frustrating, is that we're always watching and we're trying to find out, okay, what are they doing? What are they thinking? And if you don't know these people personally and you don't know how they operate personally, it's hard to make those decisions and to come out with a good, a solid opinion on how it works. It's frustrating that it's come to this. We've been doing this for, a year and a half now, over a year and a half of fighting the fight and doing this. And they're affecting everybody here in our county. They're affecting businesses that are currently here and businesses that have closed up shop and moved away, or just vacant buildings, what have you, that will never come back. They can't recover from this. And then they're affecting the kids. I mean, good grief. All they had to do was say, we're not going to comply. We will not comply with the state mandate, the governor mandate. They always say they have to because of the money. What money? You mean the taxpayer money that is generated here in Shasta County? My understanding, anyway, is that we have plenty and we could support ourselves very well. And if we can't, for whatever reason, then you downsize the budget. That's when you trim the fat. Sorry to say, last in, first out. Those are the kind of things that have to happen. People are hired every day. People are fired every day. Businesses do their bob and weave with their budgets because they know what they have to do. If they have different accounts, they rob Peter to pay Paul on these accounts to make sure things are going to work out right for the benefit of their business. The county is no different. We have to make sure that we do that. There are departments that are critical that we have to have in place, and I support those. But they don't have to have every single dollar thrown at them. And those are the kind of things that we have to look at. We want to make sure that we're talking to people, we're educating ourselves, we're educating the public, and we're also educating the bureaucrats, politicians, and management of all the departments within the county. We can't let what's been happening, to my understanding anyway, is that staff has been doing the budget, and the board signs off on it. That was evident on the vote of this last year's budget that they're talking about for next year. They said staff did it. Well, why is staff doing it? Staff shouldn't be doing any of that. They may give information and share the critical information so that the board can make an assessment and a decision and have good opinions on what's going on with each line item for a specific department. But they certainly can't make the decision for the entire department and for the entire budget. That's the board's part. That's the board's job. That's what they swore oaths to protect and to serve and to do. And by not doing that, they're violating their oaths. Essentially, they're being criminal and they're being lazy. And that's the part that's so frustrating. If it takes 3 or 4 days or an entire week, I don't care, to sit down through the entire budget and go through each budget and talk to each department head or elected official who oversees those specific budgets, say maybe, I don't know, the sheriff's department, the DA, the tax collector, the registrar of voters, the assessor's office, all those departments that have elected officials, and then the other departments that don't, that have bureaucrats that are in place. We need to make sure that they are sitting down with the board and explaining why the numbers are the way they are, what they need. If there's critical things that need to happen, you address those accordingly. But if there's just fluff in there and they're just padding it because they need to spend it, that's not the way to do it. And that's not right, because our county needs to have a contingency fund to be able to sustain for the unknowns that come down. So if we have things that happen here, more, say wildfires that we know are going to happen every year, other things that could happen. Currently, we have a lot of rain going on. Are we going to have additional flooding going on because of the the fires? And now we're going to have erosion. Most likely, we're going to have things like that happen. So then are going to be county services are going to be put out there? Absolutely. The roads are going to have to be replaced. One of our neighboring counties just had a huge landslide up in a canyon, and it closed down the highway. Now it's going to take time to get that cleaned up and ready to go and safe for travel. And that can easily happen here in Shasta County, as well as all the other counties around us. But for here in Shasta County, it can easily happen, and we've had plenty of burn over the past, 10, 15 years for that to happen, where erosion could happen. And those are the things that we have to address. And that's just one issue. I mean, you never know what else the other issues might be as they come out. Are we going to capture the water and be able to use it here in the county? I don't know. Is the county on board with doing any of those things? Haven't heard anything about it. Are they supporting any kind of water capture? Don't know. Haven't heard anything about it. So what's going to happen with that? Everybody keeps saying, oh, that's federal. Oh, no, it's not. It's state. No, it's not. County can do it too. Why not show the others how it's supposed to be done? Do it the right way. Be smart about it. Do your homework, talk to the right people, and get things in place. And those are kind of things. And then put pressure on the state to do what they're supposed to do for the county. And you're supposed to, as a board member, you're supposed to interpose between your constituents and the state. That means stand between. You're supposed to support your constituents. You're supposed to do what they want you to do, what they've elected you to do, and what you promised to do. And then if it comes down the road where you have to counter with the state and get in debate, discussion, argument, fight, whatever, go against, then you do that. That's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to stand between your constituents and the government of the state. And if you need to do that, do it. But do it together. Do it with your arms locked and saying, we're not going to do this anymore. And that hasn't been happening. And all they're doing is complying, just rolling over because, I guess there's a boatload of money over there in California that Shasta County really needs, so they're going to just roll over and get whatever they can get out of them. It's frustrating that that happens. I get and understand why they do it, but why? I mean, I get and understand why they're doing it. They're doing it for their own self-gratification and for their own purpose. They're trying to grease the palms and just do everything they can. I get that. But they're not doing it for the right reasons. They're not doing it for their constituency. And I'm a native of Shasta County. I've been here for a long time. And I know that people here, growing up here with generational, like myself, you see things that have changed drastically. Say, since I grew up here, I mean, things have changed a lot, and it's not all for the better. And that's the part that's so frustrating. There are a lot of good things about Shasta County. There are a lot of good things that have happened here, but for our fight, that we need to get this going. And everything that I've been talking about starts at the basic grassroots level locally. You have to get the fight going if you have to fight, or have the discussion. Start off with the discussion. Be nice about it, and talk to the representatives that you have, whether it's your board of supervisors or your assembly or senate representatives, whoever your elected officials are, your city council, whoever they may be. Have discussion with them if they allow it. And if they don't allow it, then that's when you start putting the coals to the fire, because they'll respond to action like that. They may respond negatively to you, but they will respond, and that shows their true colors. When they don't return phone calls, when they don't return emails, when they don't respond to just somebody come into the office wherever they may be working and holding their political court. If they're not going to respond to you, then why are they serving? They're supposed to serve the public, and the public is the taxpayers who vote, and registered voters and legally registered voters that vote them into office. We can vote them out of office. We can recall them. We have all these options that are available to us that are legal, and they're there for a reason. These are parts of the Constitution and the rules and everything else, the program that we're supposed to be able to use in order to keep things corrected. And so if we have to do a corrective action, like I've talked about before, then we do it. I mean, it's no different than if you have children or pets. You do a corrective action. If they're doing something that that they know they shouldn't be doing, you correct them. No different with the politicians. They know better. They're adults. Most of them are older adults. They really should know what's going on and what's right and what's wrong. And if they don't, then they shouldn't be serving. They should serve at the will of the people in good behavior. And if they're not in good behavior, they need to go. Simply put, whether, again, and that specifically says about judges in the Constitution, serving at good behavior. So why would we treat any other politician any less than a judge? It says that in the Constitution, and it's even bolded and capitalized. So it means something during good behavior. If they're not doing their job and they're not being honest and truthful about what they're doing and doing it in good behavior, then they should go. And that's what the recall process is all about. So I would support any recall on any elected official, doesn't matter who they are, if you can, if there's proven facts and information that you have hard documentation for to prove that they have been doing things to the counter of that. They need to make sure that they are hearing the people. And if they get voted out, then what do? That's up to them. But those are the things that we have to put people on notice about, because everybody wants to fight the fight, but nobody wants to, they'll first start saying they want to fight the fight, but then they fizzle out. And my challenge is to a lot of people, you started out fighting, where are you now? And I know that I've been doing this since 2013 for state of Jefferson, and I've sacrificed a lot of family time, a lot of personal time, and a lot of things to do this, to make it happen. And there are a lot of us that have done that. I've done no more, no less than anybody else. But there are a lot of folks that are involved, heavily involved, that want to get this done. And whether we name it Jefferson or whatever, we can name it whatever we want. And that'll be part of this state change when we do decide to, when it starts happening, we become a new state. Jefferson will be, the name of the state will be voted on, like everything. The flag will be voted on, the name of the state song, whatever, the state bird, whatever. Every issue will be voted on, and whatever the vote is by the public, the registered voters, the true registered voters of the territory of Jefferson for the new state, that will dictate what happens. And that's what's supposed to be. We're supposed to take everything like that and vote on it and keep it clean and don't pork it up. And those are the kind of things that we need to make sure that we're stepping away from as far as making things ugly and convoluted. We need to keep it simple. And you want to keep it simple so that, your typical, second, third grader can understand what you're doing. Why are you voting on this? You explain it to them in layman's terms so that they can understand it, because then that's where you're building your civics. You're building the education for the kids so when they become adults, they are responsible civic leaders. They are going to be running our country at some point. They're going to be running our state, our counties, our cities. They're going to be running these things, and we need to make sure that we train them and we get them to understand. They're educated in this process. It's really hard to do when the schools are closed. It's really hard to do when they're muzzled up at schools or they have to have a vaccine mandate from the governor or the president. That's not teaching. That's imprisoning, and we don't want to do that. And they're treating them like cattle, and for me, that's wrong. I don't have school-age children anymore, but boy, if I did, and still, I would be at every single board meeting. I am so busy with all the other stuff with Jefferson and a couple other things that I don't have time to go to the board meetings. But I know there are a lot of people that do have the time, and they should go to those. They should ask the hard questions. And like here in Shasta County, those things are happening. And same with the hospitals. People are tired of all the garbage with the healthcare issues, and so they're fighting that. And those are the people that are in the industry, the nurses, the doctors, all the other health professionals that are there, and the support staff. Those people are key just as well as the nurses and the doctors. All the support staff in the medical field, and also the support staff in the school industry. It's not just the teachers or the admin, it's the support staff as well. They are all part of the process, and we need to get and make sure that everybody is getting appropriately thanked for their service on doing that. We're having a lot of things happening here, like you said, in Shasta County. So it's moving, and I know other counties are doing it as well. I know that, but I can only speak to our county because what I've seen here locally. We're making sure that we're trying to get everybody on board with what's going on and getting everybody under the same umbrella, because it's all about the same thing. Do you think any of this stuff would be happening in the free, sovereign state of Jefferson? Do you think any of this would happen? Would we have any of these mandates being rolled out? I dare say not. It wouldn't be happening. Wouldn't be tolerated. Be unacceptable. The behavior that's been going on would be challenged through the Constitution, because we do have in our Jefferson Constitution ways of handling these things with immediate action. And those are the kind of things that need to be in place. California Constitution doesn't have that. So that's why, well, except for the recall. So you can vote them out, but you have to go through this process that takes months to do. And then you have to get so many signatures, and then you have to have them validated by some of the very people that are in bed with the politicians that are doing all the same stuff. So you have to go through that process, and sometimes you're fighting the process, but you have to use the process to get through the process. It sucks on every level, but that's what we had to do. And we were fortunate that we were successful with a recall to put on the ballot for a recall for electing new board members for District 2 specifically here in Shasta County. So who knows? I mean, Leonard is still going to be on the ballot. Are you going to recall him or not? That's going to be the first question. If he's recalled, then who are you going to vote for? If you want to vote to recall him, then if there's a list of people on that ballot, then you pick the one that you want to elect. If you say no, you don't want to recall him, that's it for your ballot. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be looking at, and we'll be looking at those very critically. We'll be looking at the ballots very critically, because as we all know, after this last election that we had, nobody could identify their ballot. There were no identifying numbers on the ballot here in Shasta County. I'm assuming the same thing happened in other counties here in California, but to me that seems invalid. I've talked to a lot of people about this stuff, and they're definitely in the know. They're in the trenches on election and integrity, and they understand what's going on with this. They know how it's working. They know why it's working that way. None of this stuff would be accepted in Jefferson at all. That's unacceptable behavior. That is not how you run your government for the betterment of the citizens that are elected you into the office. You don't do that. That's just not how it's going to happen. And so the sooner we could get our own free state, sovereign state, that we could turn this around. And I can't believe that people would be against that after seeing what we're going through here in Shasta County specifically. And I know neighboring counties are feeling the same pain, but I can only speak again to what's going on in Shasta County. Let's see. Well, part of the other big thing is too that it's all about control, and who's controlling what, who's controlling who, and why are they doing that? Is there a bigger purpose? I don't know. Maybe there is. I mean, I've heard a lot of things, I've read a lot of things, but I don't have the definitive answer, and I've never had any one person who's in charge or overseeing something to definitively say yes. I've never had that conversation with anybody, so I can't say for sure what's going to be happening. It is frustrating that the people that we elect into office continue to do what they do. They, even through ridicule, through being challenged, being, I've witnessed in some of these meetings, people, the public, cussing at these board members because they're done, they're frustrated. They call them names, they say things to them, but they're saying it out of pain, they're saying it out of frustration, and they're saying it out of the lack of performance by the very board members that they're challenging. And that's the part that's maddening, is that, okay, well, let's back off from the profanities, let's back off from yelling and whatnot. Let's put the screws to them in a different way where it works. And we've done that. And the recall, again, not being easy. And we've not gone through a process like this here in Shasta County to recall them as, I guess, as well oiled as this one was. We learned a lot. We had some bumps in the road along the way, that's for sure. Just starting out. I mean, some of the things that were done, and they were trying to derail the process through a local newspaper and through some people, whether it was staff at the county office or if it was just a combination of things that, a perfect storm, if you will. I don't know all the particular details because I wasn't there, but I've heard a lot, and it really makes you wonder, who's doing what, why they're doing it, and how they still have their jobs, and how they're not held to account for doing it. And I would hope once we have new board members in there, that the new board members would start asking those questions and start bringing those people forward. Ask those questions in public where they need to ask them, because we need to have answers. And those are the kind of things that we need to address. You start addressing those issues and you start holding people accountable in a public forum because they are public officials, they're elected by the public. They need to be able to answer those questions to the Board of Supervisors in public, and the public can hear what's being said and watch what's being said and how it's being said. There's a huge amount of information that's shared through body language and inflection. We need to be able to see that and understand it and hear it. And I for one would love to have that happen, because then that way we can get to the root of what's really going on. We can find out what we need to do and how we need to clean it up. And I know these politicians are not going to want to do that. That's going to be the last thing in the world they want to do. It's necessary. I mean, it's no different than mom or dad pulling the kid in saying, hey, what the heck's going on, in front of everybody. Boom, nail them. You end up curbing a lot of action, incorrective action, by going through that process, where if you're having bad behavior, it's a good way to correct it. My frustration too is that we always seem to throw lots of money at all these elections and so forth. And it's so frustrating, because it seems to me that money is what wins the election, whether they already have money as a well-to-do business person here in town, or just they inherited their money or whatever, or they have multiple retirements that they're feeding off of, and their supporters, depending on who their supporters are, because whoever the supporters are may have a lot of money that can throw out these campaigns, and those people seem to win when they're not the best one for the job, when we could have somebody else out there that can't afford to go down that road, would be a much better suited candidate for the position. We have a lot of really great people in Shasta County. We have some brilliant minds here in Shasta County. We have some good people that would do the right thing every time here in Shasta County. but they're not going to step up to the plate because they know that they can't afford to do it. They don't want to go down the road of being, chastised and ridiculed every time they make a decision. But it's going to get ugly here in our county pretty soon. I have a feeling that once things start changing on the board, things will change for the county, for the betterment of the county. And sometimes it's painful for that to happen. You have to have positive change can come through pain. And when I'm saying pain, I'm talking about downsizing departments, holding the purse strings a little tighter so we don't have to spend all this money. You're looking at all these things that need to happen, and they're absolutely necessary for us to be a successful county. And the thing is, what are we leaving for our kids if we don't do that? We have to do it so that we can continue surviving here in our county and provide the absolute services that we need to when we need to provide those. But we don't need to be doing all these other things that are unnecessary, if you will. We don't need all the flowery stuff. We don't need all the brand new stuff. We don't need all these custom things that are going on specifically here in our county. We have one big thing that just happened, a couple months ago when a specific department bought a big building out here in on the edge of town, and it looks like it's still sitting vacant. Why is that? They spent almost $4 million on this building, and it's sitting vacant. I thought it was urgent that they were going to move into it. Thought it was urgent that these things seem to be happening, and apparently it's not so urgent. But the county acquired this building, which is a beautiful building, and the people that sold it were doing their thing. That's fine. They didn't have any need for it any longer, or they were downsizing. So it was a private company that owned it, and then they sold it to the county. Which, okay, that arrangement happened the way it did, but why is it not being used? And then what are we trading for that? Are we selling other county properties to offset the acquisition of that building? Are we selling vacant lands that we have, meaning the county, or other buildings that the county has that they're no longer in use or need? We can't just go out and acquire everything without trading. You're going to trade a sale of one thing that you have in order to buy another thing so that it's even, it's clean. And they're not doing that, or at least it doesn't appear that they're doing that from information that I've gathered from trusted sources. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of business that way and not taxing the public one more time on things that they think that we need to do, and stay away from creating another new tax. We don't need that. We don't want that. Nobody wants to do that. And that's part of what started this whole thing. They were trying to mask a tax that they wanted to impart on the taxpayers here in Shasta County. And that's kind of what triggered some of the recall. That was part of the meat of the recall as well, because that was all happening, almost 2 years ago now, when some of the board members were talking about that, and we had just gone through that and voted down a tax here in the county, and we had just done it like 6 or 8 months before that. So they were trying to fire it back up, and they were calling it something different. And so, like I said, they're just playing the smoke and mirrors game, and we don't want that. We don't need that. And that's the only thing that they could see was going to be the best thing to do for the county. Well, no, there are other options. Like I said, excuse me, like I said, downsize, close, sell, whatever you got to do. And there are properties that the county owns that they could easily do that with. So they just need to make sure that happens and move on. I want to make sure that we address how people are, I guess, for lack of a better term, like with Jefferson, what we're looking to do is have our counties have the bulk of the responsibility for running themselves. So in other words, they're not going to be getting all this money from the state, because then the counties won't be turning the money into the state. The county will be holding on to the bulk of the money. It'll be the responsibility for the county through the Board of Supervisors and the financial departments of each county to maintain the monies within the county itself. And how the tax structure would be set up is all going to be dealt with at the part of separation from the state, from separating from California. We'd have all these things that we would have to put into place. My guess would probably be a income tax-free state. That's what we're looking to do. Be like Florida and a couple other states that you don't have income tax. You wouldn't have a corporate tax, So that would be very friendly to the corporate industry, different businesses in the corporate world. Excuse me. And we want to make sure that it's going to be friendly for law. We most likely would be an open carry state. I can't imagine that wouldn't be. And so those are the kind of things that, when the gun is out there, people are more apt to act nice. They're not going to make you a victim because they can be the victim of something if they try to do something stupid. So a well-armed state is a friendly state and is a safe state. And so for those people that don't like that, that's the way it is. It's in our Constitution. We need to be able to do that. Bear arms. That's what we have to be able to do. Excuse me. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be looking at. We want to address making sure that the way elected officials are voted in, are we going to have a senator for every county? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We don't know the protocol for that. Well, we know the protocol. We just don't know what's really going to happen. And those are the kind of things that we'll be looking at and putting together when the time comes, when it's right to do that, because then we'll know what our population base is for each county. We'll want to make sure that the representation model is far better than it is now, because California is number 50 out of 50 states on a representation model. Texas is number 49. California is 3 times worse than Texas. So you have those kind of issues going on where the representative model is, our senator, he represents 1 million people, a little over 1 million people. Our assembly member represents 500,000. How do they ever get to talk to those people? How do they get anything done? And then also the conflict between the district, within the district that they represent. One part of the district needs and wants to have certain things happen, or another part of the district doesn't need those things and doesn't want those things. Why should they be paying taxes on those things? So, and it doesn't work for them. So they're going to have conflicting issues. So those kind of things you have to look at. You're going to have your more urban centers, they're going to require certain things, and then your rural areas are going to require other things. And so they're in conflict. And that's in one hand, that's kind of the beauty of our area that we live in. We have some urban area, but we have mostly rural. And, we have the timber, we have the lakes, we have the mountains, we have all kinds of good, beautiful things up here. And those are the kind of things that we have to take care of. It's our responsibility to do that and make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do to maintain and be good stewards of the territory of Jefferson. And so until we become a state, we have to currently reside in California, frustrating as that is, but we have to work twice as hard to get the free state that we need to have. And so we're currently working on it. We have our Constitution is done until it gets ratified by the counties when we go through the state split process. It is done. It's a very good document. There are things in there that they make you think, and they make you think about freedom. And there's a lot more freedom in our Constitution than there is in other constitutions. And we are people that put that together, cherry-picked all the constitutions from the Magna Carta on to see what's out there and to create the Constitution that we currently have in place for Jefferson. They worked really hard on that for a couple of years. Every Saturday, they were online with each other, on the phone, talking and going through the process and on working documents. And not everybody agreed on everything, which is fine. That's how it works. But for the most part, it came out beautifully. They did a great job. And then we've kind of been polishing it up on certain things, with just, making sure everything's grammatically correct, making sure everything is lawful and legal, make sure everything is moral and ethical, making sure that we follow the federal Constitution. A lot of the same stuff that's in the federal Constitution is in the Jefferson Constitution. And there are a few other things in the Jefferson Constitution that aren't in the federal Constitution that make it more of a free state and less restrictive for the citizens of Jefferson. We want to make sure that we do that. We want to make sure that it's free and that we're thinking like Jeffersonians and not like Californians. That's the hardest part for some people. They'll start to say something, but they're thinking like a Californian. And then once you articulate that to them, they realize that, and then they decide, need to back off a little bit, because we've had a lot of good dialogue with lots of people about it. And once they start thinking that way, then they realize how bad we really have it. Their eyes are wide open at that point. They're like, holy smoke, this is what's really going on to us. This is what they're doing to us. We need to fight. That's right. That's what we've been saying the entire time. So it gets people on board to understand what we're doing and how we're doing it, why we're doing it. We want to make sure that we're educating our kids. That's the best thing we can do, is to educate them. Make sure that they're learning from us, we the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, family, friends, whatever, at home, away from the schools. Not only just on a regular basis, but if you choose to send your kids to the public schools, we really need to double down on educating them about the Constitution. And I'm talking about the federal Constitution and even the California Constitution. There are some good things in there, some very good things. One of the big things is the recall process. That's in there. Other states don't have it. Georgia doesn't have that. They don't have a way of recalling. They just have to wait for the next election. Well, what kind of damage can that create, from somebody being in there that is a bad person that's screwing everything up? You have to wait for the next election. That's scary. Whereas here in California, we're fortunate enough to have the recall process in a California Constitution. It's constitutional through California Constitution, counter to what other people were saying about us being unlawful on doing the process. Heck, they recalled made an attempt to recall our governor just not too long ago. But then also they recalled another governor here in California, Gray Davis, a few years back. So you just have things like this that happen, and that was a successful recall. That's when we got Arnold Schwarzenegger in right after that. Whatever. So anyway, those are kind of things that we're looking at. There's processes there. They're in place. They're there for a reason. They keep us in check with what's going on. They keep us focused on where we're supposed to be headed and how we're supposed to do it. The frustrating part is that it's every day something else is coming down that we have to fight. But, you can't give up. We have to stay focused on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it. We have to make sure that we're, again, educating the kids and other fellow citizens, adults that didn't get this information in school. Because don't forget, in 1962 is when they started dumbing down America. 1962. Proven. There's information out there regarding that. Civics no longer was civics. American history was no longer American history. They were spinning everything they could spin the way they could spin it. Well, they needed to be educating the public. Just think of all the 3-4 generations there that have been missing all this education. And that's so frustrating, because just think how much better off our country and our state would be had we still had that education part of the process in place in the schools, about the U.S. Constitution, what really happened, the U.S. history, what really happened, and the build of the history. From the Magna Carta on, from the King of England that we were fighting against to get away from the tyranny and tyrannical actions that were going on there, that we're experiencing now with our own government. Those are the kind of things that people need to understand. We need to make sure that we educate the kids on that so they can speak to it. They know what it is. And, pocket constitutions aren't very big, and they're written in plain English. And kids can understand a heck of a lot more than we give them credit for at times. Plus which, it's our job to explain what they don't understand. So if they don't understand certain terminology or certain words, we explain that to them so that they do understand and the meaning behind it. And every word in the Constitution was specifically chosen. It was selected for a purpose within the Constitution. The founders went through a painstaking process to do that. They did it for us. They did it for everybody since them. They've done it for all of us. And why would we throw it away? Why would we not use it? Why would we not get it out there and share it worldwide with people so that they can understand? Because we have a lot of American citizens that are in other countries. They need to be educated on the Constitution. And our understanding, from talking to different people, my understanding anyway, from talking to different people, other people in different countries understand our Constitution far better than some of our citizens here, because they don't have that, so they study our Constitution to understand what we have. Yet our own citizens don't take the time to study it to know what they have. So those are the things that we need to get on board with. We need to read it ourselves so we can articulate it, so we can understand it, and we can defend it. Because how are you going to defend it if you don't know what's in it? People always say, "Oh yeah, the Second Amendment." Okay, Second Amendment. What about Second Amendment? Then they stop. They're frozen. It's like, well, it's just it's a soundbite. They've heard the sound bites, but they haven't dug deep into it. Well, what does it mean? What does it stand for? How do you use it? Those are the kind of things that you need to go deeper on, and a lot of people just haven't done it. I don't know if they don't care, don't want to do it, don't want to be bothered, or somebody will take care of it for me. Well, no, that's not the way to live. Your civic duty, your responsibility as an adult in the state of California, in the United States of America, and hopefully soon in the state of Jefferson, is to be adult about this. Your job is to educate yourself and find ways of doing that. And with all the things available today, there is no excuse not to. And have conversations with people, have good discussions, in-depth discussions. And even if you disagree, continue the discussion, because it's okay to disagree on things. And you don't have to get all pissy and fight about it. You just talk about it and find out. Maybe what they're saying holds water. Maybe I'm wrong on the way I'm thinking. So those are the kind of things that we need to be able to express and share with people. So I just want to make sure that we're all headed in the right direction. We're focused on what we need to be focused on. Helping where we can help. I mean, there's always time to go out and help different groups and organizations fight the fight. Here locally, we're doing that, and we have a lot of people that are, for lack of a better term, cross-pollinating. We're mixing our groups together. We have the schools, we have the healthcare facilities, we have patriot groups, we have militia, we have all these different groups that work together because they're neighbors, they're friends, they're family. Just because you belong to one organization doesn't mean you're not associated in some sense to all these other groups, because you could have a spouse in another group, you could have a child in another group, you could yourself be in multiple groups. So those are the kind of things that happen here locally in Shasta County. I know they're happening in other counties as well, because there are a lot of good patriots everywhere. They're all over this country, well, even all over the world, because they're serving in military or just living in other countries, but they're still patriots. And those are kind of things that people that we need to be connecting with and making sure that we're all on the same page, moving forward with what we need to do to get this corrected. We want to make sure that we get things fixed, because with what's going on in Washington, which I personally can't affect in any way, but I can personally affect what happens here in my county. And I can do that 7 days a week. And I've been working on it for a long time, along with a lot of other great patriots and other new patriots coming into the group. They're finding out that they are patriot. They didn't know they were, but they are. And they're wound up. They're frustrated. They're willing to fight now. So that's what it takes. And I don't mean come into fisticuffs, but it may come to that at some point. Is it going to come to bearing arms? I don't know. I can't say. I don't have the crystal ball to know what's going to happen down the road. But it does mean that people are going to have to take a stand and say, not anymore, or not on my watch, not my child, not my home, not my body, whatever. You stand there and you take a firm stance on that. And then you also give corrective action to those who are elected into those positions that are supposed to be serving you. If they're not serving you morally and ethically, lawfully, legally, they need to go. They need to go. And especially when they're violating their oaths of office. Because don't forget, most of them swear an oath to 2 constitutions simultaneously. When they're sworn in as a board member here in Shasta County, they're sworn in on the California Constitution, which also says the federal Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So simultaneously, they're swearing to 2 constitutions, and then to the oath of their office that they serve. So again, it goes back to good behavior. If they're not operating and working within good behavior, they need to go. And they need to be explained to them why they need to go, because you're not doing this, because you're not doing that, or you have done this and you've done that. And omission is just as big by not being honest with the public, and by not talking about it, and by omitting anything about it. That's just as bad of lying. That's lying on itself. So they need to make sure that they are doing what they need to do, and we need to hold them to the account of that. We need to find out and have talks with them. And you don't need to go and be critical right off the get-go, but at the same time, talk to them, find out. They should be approachable. I know several of our, well, one of our board members for sure here in Shasta County is very approachable. You can go to his place of business and you can basically sit there and talk to him for whatever time you both agree to talk to each other about, and for whatever you want to discuss, and make it happen. Others, you can't even find them. You don't know where they are, and they won't talk to you in the board meetings because they can't, they say. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at. You want to make sure that they're approachable, that you approach them, and just because a particular board member isn't voted in by you from your district doesn't mean that they don't serve you. They do serve you. They're on the board. They're one of 5 on the board in Shasta County. So 20% of everything that goes on as far as the votes affects you. So, I mean, I should say 80%. 80%, my number is backwards. The 4 others, how they vote affects you as well. So your vote, if your guy votes the way you want him to every time, perfect. But if the other 4 don't, there could be a problem. So those kind of things you have to look at. And again, it's just having communication with them, talk to them, find out what's going on, making sure that you're on board with how they're serving. And if they are, great. And if they are doing a good job, thank them for doing what they're doing, and give them praise, not attaboys and kudos, but just thank them for doing the right thing, making sure that you state that fact. But then when they don't, then you want to make sure that you hold them accountable to that, or just, say, hey, that last vote sucked. You need to you need to think about what you're really doing out there, and just get some feedback. We want to make sure that we're getting all that information out there. If you want to, for more information for Jefferson, you can go to soj51.org, and you can look at the website there and see how you can get connected within your county. There are 23 counties within the territory of Jefferson, and we'd love to have all the help we can get. And there's a county committee near you, and if there's a county that doesn't have a committee, maybe you need to create it within your own county. Hopefully we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Hey, CA, come out and play. Have you seen the bill we all have to pay? It's not our bill, we had no say. You don't serve us, you serve LA. The time has come for 51 in a Jefferson state of mind. You don't know us, you have no clue, still you're telling us what to do. We don't know you or what you face. It's time to start a brand new state. The time has come for 51 in a Jefferson state of mind. Jefferson state of mind. Carve from lessons we all learned through time. And to my new state, I will always be true. She's gonna shine in the red, white, and blue. It's really better off this way. The welfare you won't have to pay. You keep your royal pedigree. All we're asking is set up